it's Doris with All the Books, and I am here with Shawn, the book maniac. Now, he's not like here, but he will be at the end of this video. It would be fun if we were here chatting. That would be just too much fun. But anyway, we're here to tell you about the book we buddy read in November for Nonfiction November. Wrapped in Rainbows, The Life of Zora Neale Hurston by Valerie Boyd. We both absolutely love this book. 5 stars, 5 and 5 stars, 10 stars. And Zora Neale Hurston, oh, what an absolutely delightful human being she was. So we could talk about this all day long, Shawn and I. We did. We talked about every single chapter in this book. It was so good. But I'm gonna, rein it in and just focus on 5 things and give Shawn a little time to talk here. So let me just jump in with that. Number 1 is Zora herself. She was an absolute joy. She lived her life with such a positive spirit, regardless of her circumstances. I found her so very inspiring throughout her entire life. She is an inspiration, truly. And you could tell Valerie Boyd was just as captivated. Her writing just really speaks to what a wonderful person Zora was. It's a little bit biased. Not gonna lie there. It is a little bit biased in favor of our sweet Zora, but who can help it? She's just wonderful. Anyway, point number 2 is, again, all about Zora, but she just had this go-getter spirit. She just did what she wanted to do. She had issues with, racism and feminism and finances, but if something didn't work out, she worked around it and figured out how to make it happen as best she could. And wow, the things that she accomplished in the time that she accomplished them, the time period, just so ahead of her time. Wow, 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 wow. And she just was such a traveler. She didn't let herself be tied down to any place or things or people. She just went and did. Oh, when she went to Haiti to study voodoo, oh my gosh, so cool. So cool. And then she ended up making it to Honduras too. Zora, Zora, Zora. Anyway, number 3 is the Harlem Renaissance. So I actually don't tend to enjoy books written in the Roaring 20s. Now this one spans well before the 20s, I guess closer to the turn of the century, and then on through her life in the 50s. But the Roaring 20s, the Harlem Renaissance, Shawn and I both have huge lists of books and authors that we want to explore based on what we've read in this book. Very, very, very excited about that. And another thing I love about that time period is just this energy to explore the culture and embrace it and revel in it and document it. The fact that Zora wanted to go out into all of these small rural communities in different countries and document the Black experience and culture and language. Oh, her writing is gorgeous. That's number 5, but I can't say enough good things about Zora. And number 4 is the conflict in the African American community at the time, the tension in literature and the arts between those like Zora who just wanted to embrace and revel in the culture, and the other side of the mix with Richard Wright and Ralph Ellison wanting to advance social causes. And the tension between those is just extremely, extremely thought-provoking, and I'm really looking forward to reading more about that as well. And number 5, the language. Zora had a gift. She had such a gift for language. And as a language teacher myself, I am just captivated by people and their speech patterns and the words they use and the power in words. And Zora, wow, she had such a command of language and such an ear for it. She can string words together like nobody else. And she can hear the people speak and just had this gift of, becoming one with whoever she was talking to, the community. She just immersed herself and became a beloved member of the community. And so people told her things, and she just recorded their voices so beautifully in this book. And again, Valerie Boyd, the author here, she's just such a good job of using Zora's own words, Zora's autobiography and letters that she wrote to other people, and her novels and writings, and just bringing it all together into this work that really speaks Zora's life through her words. And it's just fabulous. So this is just set up from the beginning when, Zora was born to her death. It's chronological. It's easy to follow. But it's a great buddy read because you can just read one chapter at a time and really dwell on what's going on in that little snippet of time and learn about Zora and the world around her and just enjoy it so much. So I'm gonna stop now gushing about Zora and let Shawn wrap this up, but highly, highly recommend, and very much looking forward to reading a lot more of her works as well as other Harlem Renaissance writers in 2019. Take it away, Shawn.
Hello, BookTube. I'm Shawn the Book Maniac. So, yeah, what Doris said. I'm finished. She did a wonderful job of explaining how deeply we both fell in love with Zora Neale Hurston. I was already smitten with her from reading Their Eyes Were Watching God a couple years ago. I had postponed it for a lifetime because I didn't think I would enjoy or be able to deal with the African American dialect. And I got over that ridiculous qualm within a page and a half. And it is the only novel published in the 20th century in America worth reading. No, but it's the best. So I just fell in love with Zora Neale Hurston's writing. And this book made me fall in love with her, the person, as well as the writing, because as Doris said, so it's based so much on her own writing, her letters, and her autobiography and her novels. I noticed how many times Doris was speechless and shaking her head because, what do you say, we just loved her. So the first quote that I highlighted from the biography was looking back on her childhood, where she started walking around and leaving the house without her mother knowing where she was. And she said, the strangest thing about it was that once I found the use of my feet, they took to wandering. And that really describes the rest of her life. She never stayed in the same place very long. She lived an innumerable number of American states and cities and small towns, and went doing her anthropology work, went to all kinds of different countries for months at a time. I don't know how her friends and family kept track of her. And that was really interesting. So this book also fits the Nonfiction November prompt for Wander Wonder, because she sure wandered around the world. I'm just going to add a few things that really captured my imagination about the biography, which is the queerness of the Harlem Renaissance, which I was only vaguely aware of. Zora Neale Hurston, I don't know what her sexuality was. There's a little bit of speculation here, but I mean, who cares, really? But she certainly was surrounded by gay and lesbian writers during the heyday of the Harlem Renaissance. Nobody quite knows what to make of Langston Hughes. Of course, they were besties for years, had a really unfortunate falling out and their friendship never recovered, but they had been so close. But, I mean, Aline Locke, Ma Rainey, Ethel Waters, Bessie Smith, Josephine Baker, Richard Bruce Nugent, lesser-known member of the Harlem Renaissance gang, but Zora Neale Hurston's roommate. And he lived until just maybe 15 or 20 years ago and wrote all kinds of memoirs and stuff. Wallace Thurman, County Cullen, Claude McKay, Alberta Hunter, Alice Dunbar Nelson, and Angelina Weld Grimke. I didn't know very much about them. I want to find out far more, but I loved how much of that was included in this biography of Zora Neale Hurston's milieu and what it showed about her open-mindedness. Reading this biography got me awakened an interest in the various other members of the Harlem Renaissance. Doris and I are discussing doing some further reading next year. But what a time to be alive, and more to the point of this biography is to show how throbbingly alive Zora Neale Hurston was. And she just lighted up every room she walked into. Her mother said to her and her many, many siblings when they were young, "Jump at the sun." And did she ever? One of her friends was a white, best-selling, popular novelist of the early 20th century, Fannie Hurst. And Fannie Hurst said of Zora, she had the gift of walking into hearts, and she sure walked into mine. She is not known for being politically oriented in her fiction or in her life. Some people consider her conservative. I think that's not necessarily fair. There was more nuance, as this biography shows, to what political belief she had. But first and foremost, she was a people person and she was a writer person. And the rest of it didn't matter so much to her. Her outlook on socio-political matters was deeply affected by the fact that she grew up in an all-black town, Eatonville, in Florida. And she never really had to deal with Jim Crow stuff until into her adult years or into her late teens. So her experience of being African American was very different from a lot of her contemporaries in the Harlem Renaissance, and that caused certain friction or certain critiques of each other's works. And that's all grist for the mill, right? It's all fabulous. Her famous quote about politics and about racism, here it is. "Sometimes I feel discriminated against, but it does not make me angry. It merely astonishes me. How can any deny themselves the pleasure of my company? It's beyond me." Well, that isn't a complete response to racism and hatred. Of course not. But it is one answer, and it was one that she lived out for her whole life. And I love that about her, while also not poo-pooing the critique that others said where it's not that simple, girlfriend. Of course it's not. I don't think she thought it was, but that is how she lived her life. A couple other things before I close. She lied about her age her whole life and shaved a decade or more. It originally started because she could qualify for some free education if she was still a teenager, so she was like 23 and she said she was 15, and that gap between her true age and her real age kept getting wider. She died aged, how old was she when she died? She looked much younger than, so she got away with it, so good for her. So now I feel liberated to tell you that I'm actually 10 years older than I've been saying all this time. I'm actually 35. Other thing was, her love life was terrible. Well, no, that's not right. She had a great love life, but she needed to be single, and she needed to be free to do what she wanted to do, but she kept meeting these hot guys, falling into bed and in love with them, and getting married, and then I think the average length of each of her 3 marriages was less than a year. I think the last one, the divorce proceedings, started 6 weeks after the marriage. But she stayed friends with most of them. She was a good friend to men and had trouble in the husband department. But what an amazing life she had. And I'd like to close with a quote from her speaking rather than from her writing. It's a transcript of an interview, and to me it speaks across the century, as into the era that we're all unfortunately living in today, full of vitriol and hatred and resurgence of racism and toxic crap. And this is what she said in the interview. These do be times that take all you have to scrape up a decent laugh or so. I do not refer to the battlefields, but to this enormous pest of hate that is rotting men's souls. When will people learn that you cannot quarantine hate? Once it gets loose in the world, it rides over all barriers, and seeps under the doors and in the cracks of every house. I see it all around me every day. I am not talking of race hatred, just hate. Everybody is at it. The world smells like an abattoir. It makes me very unhappy. I am all wrong in this vengeful world. I will to love. Well, Zora, you go, girl. I hope this whets your appetite to read more about Zora Neale Hurston. Doris and I both heartily recommend this biography, and anything that Zora herself wrote is worth your time. I just predict that 85.5% of you are going to fall as head over heels in love with Zora Neale Hurston as Doris and I did. Thanks for watching.